Good evening, dear friends, and welcome to Sleepytime Chronicle, your serene haven for a good night's sleep. Tonight, I'm here to take you on a quiet journey into the world of dreams. As the day gently passes, let the soothing rhythm of my voice lead you into a state of calm and relaxation. With each word, let go of the worries of the day and feel the weight of the world lift from your shoulders. Together, we will embark on a peaceful adventure, ensuring you fall into a deep and restorative night of sleep. So find your cozy spot, snuggle up, and let this enchanting story begin. Sweet dreams are just a story. Clouded Prince, a journey of empathy and transformation. Chapter 1, The Storm's Gift. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a prince named Adrian. His realm was one of prosperity and peace, where laughter filled the air and fields bloomed with endless colors. Prince Adrian was beloved by many for his bravery and noble deeds, having defended the kingdom from dragons and led many victorious battles. Yet, beneath the surface of his gallant exploits lay a shadow not often seen, but deeply felt. A shadow of pride. Prince Adrian, for all his virtues, bore an arrogance that blinded him to the struggles of those less fortunate. He walked the halls of his castle with the certainty that his way was always right, his voice the most important. Though his people respected him, a distance grew between them, a chasm widened by his inability to empathize. One day, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, a mysterious seer arrived at the castle. With eyes as deep as the night sky and a voice that whispered like the wind, she foretold the coming of a magical storm, unlike any the kingdom had ever seen. This storm, she warned, carried ancient magic capable of changing the fate of those it touched. The kingdom stirred with unease at the prophecy, but Prince Adrian's heart beat with excitement rather than fear. He saw not a warning, but an adventure, a challenge to his strength and courage. Ignoring the seer's ominous words, he boasted, "Let the storm come. I shall face it head on and emerge victorious, as always," as preparations began to shield the kingdom from the storm's wrath. Adrian's thoughts were not of protection, but of the glory that facing such a force could bring him. Little did he know, the storm sought not to challenge his strength, but something far more profound, the very essence of his being. As the day of the storm approached, the kingdom braced for what was to come. The sky, once a brilliant blue, turned a somber gray, and the air grew thick with anticipation. Prince Adrian, however, stood unyielding, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where dark clouds began to swirl supernatural speed. The seer's words echoed in the minds of the villagers, stirring whispers of unease. "This is no ordinary storm," they murmured among themselves, their eyes wide with fear. Yet, in the heart of the prince, there lay no room for fear, only the burning desire for conquest. As night fell, the storm descended upon the kingdom with a fury that shook the very foundations of the castle. Thunder roared like the drums of war, and lightning split the sky, a dazzling display of nature's unrivaled power. The people sought shelter, praying for dawn to break and bring with it calm. But Prince Adrian, in his arrogance, stepped into the heart of the tempest. Clad in his armor, he challenged the storm, shouting defiance against the howling wind. It was then, at the height of his hubris, that a bolt of lightning, radiant and crackling with magical energy, struck him down. The world around Adrian dimmed, and the roar of the storm faded into silence. When he awoke, he found himself not in the ruins of the battlefield he expected, but adrift in the very heart of the storm. His body, once strong and solid, was now ethereal, formless, a cloud among clouds. Panic gripped him as he realized he could not speak, could not move as he once did. His arms, his legs, everything that defined him as human, were gone, replaced by the mist and vapor of a cloud. He was a prisoner within the storm, carried by winds he could not control, forced to watch the world below with eyes that were not eyes. The prince's first thought was of himself, of the curse that had befallen him. How can this be? He wondered, his mind racing. How can I reclaim my kingdom, my body, my very life? But as the storm carried him across his lands, his thoughts began to drift from his own plight to the world below. From his new, lofty vantage, Prince Adrian saw his kingdom as he had never seen it before. He watched as the villagers emerged from their homes, their faces etched with relief and wonder at the passing of the storm. He saw the fields, soaked but still golden, and the forests, their leaves shimmering with drops of rain, each a tiny jewel in the dawnlight. For the first time, Adrian saw not just a kingdom, but a living tapestry of lives, each thread woven with stories of struggle and joy, hope and despair. And as he floated aimlessly, carried by the whims of the wind, a realization began to dawn on him, a realization of the vastness of the world and the myriad lives that pulsed within it, lives he had never truly seen. In his heart, where pride once reigned unchallenged, a seed of empathy began to sprout, watered by the tears of the storm. The transformation of Prince Adrian into a cloud was not merely a change of form, but a profound alteration of his very essence. As he floated above the land he he once ruled, his consciousness expanded, merging with the vapors that surrounded him. He felt the rain as it prepared to fall, sensed the sunlight as it pierced through his misty body, and rode the wind as it danced across the sky. This new existence was at once terrifying and exhilarating. Adrian, who had once commanded armies, now found himself at the mercy of the very elements he had sought to conquer. The storm that had been his undoing became his domain, yet he was powerless within it, a mere spectator to its majesty. As days turned to weeks, Adrian's initial panic gave way to a profound sense of solitude. He watched over his kingdom, unseen and unheard, a ghost upon the wind. He saw the aftermath of the storm, the broken trees and flooded fields, but also the resilience of his people as they rebuilt what had been lost. He witnessed their kindness, their cooperation, and their unwavering spirit, qualities he had never taken the time to appreciate. In this ethereal form, Adrian began to understand the value of the lives below. He saw the toil of the farmers, the care of mothers for their children, and the shared joys and sorrows that bound the community together. With each passing day, the prince felt a growing connection to these people, a warmth that filled the coldness of his misty heart. Yet, with this newfound empathy came a deep longing. Adrian yearned to speak with his people, to offer comfort and aid. But as a cloud, he was but a shadow passing overhead, felt but not seen, his whispers lost in the wind. It was during a particularly beautiful sunset, as the sky bloomed with hues of orange and purple, that Adrian's despair reached its peak. What purpose do I serve like this? He lamented, his thoughts a turmoil of regret and longing. Is this to be my existence forever? A silent observer, unable to make amends for my past arrogance. It was then, amidst his turmoil, that the wind seemed to whisper back, a voice both gentle and ancient. There is a way, it murmured, a promise carried on the breeze. But the path to redemption is not through the strength of your body, but the strength of your heart. The words struck Adrian with the force of a gale. He realized then that his transformation was not a punishment, but a gift, a chance to see the world through new eyes and to learn the true meaning of strength and leadership. Determined to reclaim his humanity and make right his past wrongs, Adrian resolved to seek out the source of the whisper, to learn the way back to his human form. And so, with a purpose renewed, he allowed the wind to carry him forth towards the unknown. With the wind's whisper igniting a flicker of hope in his ethereal heart, Prince Adrian set forth on his journey across the skies. As a cloud, he had no map nor need for roads. path was drawn by the desires of the wind and the pull of an unseen force that guided him onwards. The world from above was a tapestry of wonders. Mountains rose like the spines of sleeping giants. Forests spread like emerald seas, and rivers wound through the lands like silver threads. Villages and towns, each with their smoke rising in the crisp air, appeared to Adrian as nests of life, pulsing with the quiet rhythm of existence. During his travels, Adrian witnessed the seasons change from the lofty solitude of the clouds. He saw the first snowflakes of winter kiss the ground. The blossoms of spring unfurl like a painter's palette. The sun-drenched fields of summer and the fire of autumn leaves. With each change, he felt a deeper connection to the world below, a world he had once viewed from the narrow confines of his castle and his pride. But it was not just the beauty of the earth that captured Adrian's attention. From his vantage, he saw the struggles of his people. Farmers toiling in the fields, fishermen braving the stormy seas, and merchants traversing dangerous roads to bring goods to distant towns. He witnessed the fragility of life, how a single storm could undo months of hard work, and how joy and sorrow were often but a heartbeat apart. Through these observations, Adrian's heart, once hardened by pride, softened. He began to understand the strength found in vulnerability, the courage required to face each day's uncertainties, and the boundless resilience of the human spirit. He realized that true leadership was not about power over others, but about understanding and serving them. As he floated over a small village, Adrian watched a scene that would stay with him for the rest of his days. A young boy, no older than 7, struggled to carry a pail of water from the well, his small frame shaking with effort. As he neared his home, he stumbled, and the water spilled into the dirt, leaving him in tears. Without thinking, Adrian drifted closer, his cloud form casting a shadow over the boy. Then, gently, so gently, he let a few drops of rain fall, filling the boy's pail. The child, looking up in wonder, smiled through his tears and whispered a thank you to the sky. In that moment, Adrian felt a joy unlike any he had known as a prince. He had touched a life, albeit in a small way, and it filled him with a sense of purpose. He realized that even as a cloud, he could make a difference, that empathy and kindness were not bound by form. With this realization, Adrian continued his journey, no longer just a prince lost in the form of a cloud, but a being on a quest to understand the true essence of leadership and humanity. Adrian's journey as a cloud took him to the furthest corners of his kingdom, across landscapes no royal caravan could reach. With each passing day, the wind's whispers grew stronger, more coherent, guiding him with an invisible hand. It spoke of ancient magics, of lands untouched by time, and of the deep, raw essence of nature itself. Through these whispers, Adrian learned the language of the wind, the songs of the earth, and the murmurs of the waterways. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the world in a soft, golden light, Adrian found himself floating above a dense forest, older than the kingdom itself. The wind guided him to a clearing where an ancient tree stood, its branches stretching towards the heavens, leaves whispering secrets in a language few could understand. It was here, in the embrace of the ancient forest, that Adrian heard the wind speak of empathy and humility. To understand the heart of another, it said, you must listen to the unspoken words, feel the pain unseen, and offer kindness without expectation. These words, simple yet profound, struck a chord within Adrian, igniting a flame of understanding that would light his way forward. As days turned into nights and seasons shifted in a never-ending dance, Adrian witnessed countless acts of kindness and moments of connection between the creatures of the earth. He saw wolves sharing their kill with the old and infirm, a bear gently leading her cubs through the forest, and birds guiding lost travelers to safety. Each act, no matter how small, contributed to the tapestry of life, a harmony maintained by understanding and empathy. Adrian's own form began to change with this newfound understanding. Where once he had been a mere wisp of cloud, formless and aimless, he now moved with purpose. His shape more defined, almost mirroring his human form. This physical change was a reflection of his internal transformation, a sign that he was nearing the end of his journey in the skies. One night, under a canopy of stars, the wind carried Adrian to the edge of his kingdom, to a mountain so high its peak was lost in the clouds. Here the wind whispered. He would find the sage who could guide him back to his human form, but only if he proved that his heart had truly changed. With a resolve as firm as the mountain stone, Adrian ascended, each upward swirl a step closer to his redemption. The wind, once a captor, now his guide, led him to the peak, where the sage, a being as old as time itself, awaited. The sage, with eyes that held the wisdom of the ages, looked upon Adrian, seeing not a cloud, but the soul of a prince transformed by his journey. You have seen the world through eyes unclouded by pride, the sage spoke, his voice echoing the wind's whispers. But to reclaim your human form, you must demonstrate the lessons of empathy and humility you have learned. Adrian, ready to prove his transformation, listened intently as the sage set forth the path he must follow. A path that would lead him not just back to his kingdom, but to a new way of ruling, guided by the virtues he had learned from the world above. With the sage's challenge set before him, Prince Adrian felt the weight of his journey coalesce into a single moment of truth. He had traversed the breadth of his kingdom, witnessed life through the ephemeral lens of the skies, and learned the language of empathy whispered by the wind. Now, as he stood, or rather, floated before the sage atop the mountain, he realized that his transformation was not yet complete. The sage's eyes, aglow with the light of stars untold, fixed upon Adrian. "Your journey has shown you the world beyond the castle walls," he said, his voice a soft murmur that seemed to echo the rustle of leaves and the flow of rivers. "But to return to your human form, you must understand the essence of your transformation. You must learn to float not as a cloud, but as a soul unburdened by pride and filled with the light of empathy." Adrian listened, the words resonating within his formless heart. He had come to understand the world in ways he had never imagined. But now he faced the task of internalizing these lessons, of making them a part of his very being. The sage offered him a task, simple yet profound. To complete your transformation, you must learn to float among your people, unseen but always present, offering aid without recognition and kindness, without the expectation of gratitude. Your actions, like the gentlest rain, must nourish the land and its people, fostering growth and harmony without a trace of your hand. Taking these words to heart, Adrian descended from the mountain, his purpose clear. He traveled back to the kingdom, moving with the wind, a silent guardian watching over his land. He began to act in subtle ways, guiding lost travelers with a gentle breeze, nurturing parched crops with a soft rain, and cooling the brow of toiling farmers under the hot sun. With each act of kindness, Adrian felt his spirit lighten, his form gaining a luminescence that mirrored the dawn's first light. He was learning to float not just as a cloud, but as a benevolent presence, embodying the virtues of empathy and humility he had come to embrace. Days passed, and with each sunrise, Adrian grew closer to his people, understanding their joys and sorrows, hopes and fears. He saw the beauty in their simple acts of kindness, in their unwavering resilience, and in their capacity for love and forgiveness. As he continued his silent guardianship, Adrian felt a change within. The boundaries of his formless self began to shimmer, hinting at the man he once was. This transformation was not marked by the regaining of his physical form, but by the profound shift within his heart. A heart now beating in unison with the land and its people. One evening, as Adrian floated over the kingdom, the wind carried to him the laughter of children, the songs of celebration, and the whispers of love and dreams. It was in this moment, surrounded by the life he had come to cherish, that Adrian understood the true essence of his journey. He had learned to float, not by distancing himself from the world, but by immersing himself in it, by becoming a part of the intricate dance of life that thrived below. He had become a leader, not through the might of his sword or the power of his throne, but through the strength of his heart and the depth of his compassion. As the moon rose, casting a silver glow over the kingdom, Adrian felt a profound peace. He knew that his journey was nearing its end, but the lessons he had learned would forever guide him, whether as a prince among men or a cloud among the stars. Chapter 2: The Quest for Restoration. After his ethereal journey of self-discovery and transformation, Prince Adrian, now more spirit than man, returned to the sage atop the mountain, his essence glowing with the lessons learned from his time as a cloud. The sage, ancient as the stars and wise as the ages, greeted him with a nod, acknowledging the profound change within the prince without a word. Prince Adrian, the sage began, his voice echoing the deep calm of the forest. You have seen the world through the eyes of the sky, learned the language of empathy whispered by the wind, and felt the heartbeat of the earth. But to reclaim your human form and return to your people, you must embark on a quest to learn the virtues you lacked: compassion, humility, and courage. The prince listened intently, a flicker of determination in his formless self. He had come far from the proud and aloof young man he once was, but he understood that his journey was far from over. The quest the sage set before him was not just about regaining his form, but about proving the sincerity of his transformation. For your first task, the sage continued, you must seek the tear of a phoenix. This is no ordinary tear, but one shed from a heart touched by true compassion. To find it, you must journey to the firelands, where the phoenixes dance in the flame and rise from their ashes. There, you will find a creature in need of your kindness. Only through an act of genuine compassion will you earn the tear you seek. Adrian, though without form, felt the weight of the task before him. The firelands were a place of legend, a realm where fire reigned eternal, and the phoenixes, creatures of beauty and rebirth, made their home. To earn the tear of a phoenix was to understand the depth of compassion, a challenge he accepted with the humility learned from his time as a cloud. Your second task, the sage said, shifting like the shadows cast by the moon, will take you to the summit of echoes. There, you must capture moonlight in a bottle at the moment it reflects off the mirror lake. This task will teach you humility, for to capture the moonlight, you must climb the highest peak and face the vastness of the world, recognizing your own insignificance in the grandeur of nature. Adrian's spirit stirred at the thought of the summit of echoes, a place said to be so high that the stars seemed within reach, and the silence was so profound it echoed. The humility required for this task was a lesson he felt prepared to embrace, a virtue that had once been foreign to him. Your final task, the sage's voice grew softer, is to hear a dragon's heartbeat. You must venture into the caverns of whispering shadows, where the oldest of dragons reside. To hear a dragon's heartbeat is to understand courage, for you must approach the dragon with honesty and vulnerability, facing your fears and standing firm in the face of power. The prince knew this would be his greatest challenge. Dragons were beings of immense power and wisdom, feared and revered in equal measure. To stand before such a creature and seek its heartbeat required a courage that came not from the might of arms, but from the strength of one's heart. With the sage's words guiding him, Prince Adrian set forth on his quest. Each step a testament to the lessons he had learned and the man he hoped to become. The journey ahead was fraught with peril, but it was also a path to redemption, to a throne deserved not by birthright, but by the virtues of compassion, humility, and courage. Prince Adrian's journey to the Firelands was a testament to the resolve that had been forged in the crucible of his transformation. As a cloud, he had traversed the skies with ease, but now, driven by purpose, he moved with the determination that belied his formless nature. The Firelands, a realm where the ground breathed flames and the air shimmered with heat, loomed ahead, a daunting vista of reds and golds under a smoky sky. Within this inferno, the phoenixes danced, creatures of fire and rebirth. Their plumage blazed with colors that outshone the very flames from which they were born. Adrian, in his quest for the tear of a phoenix, sought not just any tear, but one born of true compassion, a challenge that would require him to extend the empathy he had learned as a cloud to another being. It was in the heart of the Firelands that Adrian encountered a scene that would test his newfound understanding. A young fawn, its coat singed by the flames, lay trembling on the scorched earth. Its eyes, wide with fear, met Adrian's gaze. And in that moment, the prince felt a connection, a stirring of compassion that moved him to act. Hovering over the fawn, Adrian whispered to the wind, asking it to cool the air around the injured creature. Then, carefully, he began to gather moisture from the air, forming droplets of rain that fell gently upon the fawn's wounds, soothing the burns and offering relief. But it was not Adrian's actions alone that would earn the terror of a phoenix. Watching from the flames was a phoenix, its eyes reflecting the kindness displayed before it. Moved by Adrian's act of compassion, the phoenix approached, its wings casting a warm, healing light over the fawn. Together, their efforts nurtured the fawn back to health, its strength returning as it stood, unsteady at first, but soon firm. As the fawn bounded away, a single tear fell from the phoenix's eye, a tear of gratitude and compassion, glowing with the essence of fire. Adrian, with the utmost reverence, caught the tear, its warmth pulsing in his formless grasp. In that moment, he understood the depth of compassion. It was not just the act of healing, but the willingness to share another's pain, to offer hope in the face of despair. The phoenix, recognizing the change within Adrian, spoke in a voice that crackled like fire, yet soothed like a balm. "You have shown true compassion, Prince Adrian," it said. "This tear is a testament to the heart you have opened to the pain of others. Carry it as a reminder of the strength found in kindness." With the tear of a phoenix secured, Adrian thanked the magnificent creature and set off towards his next challenge, his spirit buoyed by the knowledge that compassion was a force as powerful as the fiercest flame. The first task had been completed, not through might or command, but through the simple, profound act of caring for another. With the tear of a phoenix safely in his keeping, Prince Adrian turned his sights to the summit of Echoes, where his second task lay waiting. The journey to the summit was one of reflection, as Adrian traversed landscapes that spoke of the Earth's ancient past and whispered of its enduring spirit. The summit of Echoes, named for its haunting silence, was a place where the veil between the earthly and the divine seemed thinnest, where the stars were so close one could almost hear their celestial songs. To capture moonlight in a bottle was to grasp the intangible, to hold a piece of the night soul. The task was not merely about the act itself, but about understanding one's place within the grand tapestry of the universe. As Adrian ascended the mountain, each step took him higher, not only in altitude, but in understanding. The world below stretched out in all its majesty, a vast, breathing entity that pulsed with life and mystery. Reaching the peak as twilight faded, Adrian found himself enveloped in the profound silence of the summit of Echoes. Here, atop the world, he prepared to capture the moonlight, his bottle ready to catch the silver essence of the night. But as he stood there, waiting for the perfect moment, a sense of humility washed over him. Surrounded by the infinite expanse of the sky, with countless stars bearing witness to his task, Adrian felt his significance dwindle, his pride and past vanities melting away under the weight of the universe's vastness. The moon, in all its serene beauty, rose high above, casting a silvery glow over the summit. Adrian, moved by the moment, realized that the moonlight was not something to be captured, but to be cherished, a gift of the night to be shared with all of creation. Gently, with a reverence born of his newfound humility, he held the bottle aloft, allowing the moonlight to flow into it, not as a conqueror, but as a humble recipient of the night's grace. As the bottle filled with the ethereal light, Adrian understood that true humility lay in recognizing one's smallness in the face of the universe's grandeur, and in finding joy in the simple beauty of existence. The moonlight in the bottle shimmered, a tangible symbol of his lesson learned, a reminder that strength comes not from dominion over nature, but from a respectful communion with it. With the task complete, Adrian descended the mountain, the moonlight in his bottle, a beacon in the darkness, guiding him forward. The journey back was a contemplation of his place in the world, of the delicate balance between human and nature, and of the humility required to walk the earth not as its master, but as its steward. The second task had taught Adrian a profound lesson, one that would guide him as he faced the final challenge of his quest. Humility, he now knew, was the foundation upon which true leadership must be built, a leadership that seeks not to elevate oneself, but to uplift all beings in a shared journey toward the light. With the moonlight safely ensconced in his bottle, Prince Adrian set his sights on the final task that awaited him in the depths of the caverns of whispering shadows. The journey to the caverns was one shrouded in anticipation, for within lay the most formidable challenge yet: to hear a dragon's heartbeat, an act requiring courage, not of the sword, but of the soul. The caverns of whispering shadows were a place of legend, a labyrinthine expanse, carved into the heart of the earth by time itself. Rumors spoke of a dragon that dwelled within, a creature of immense power and wisdom, whose heartbeat was said to resonate with the very pulse of the earth. To approach such a being and ask to hear its heartbeat was to stand vulnerable before the embodiment of fear and majesty. Adrian entered the caverns with a sense of purpose, his every step echoing in the vast emptiness. The air was thick with ancient magic, and the shadows seemed to dance with secrets untold. As he delved deeper, the prince reflected on the nature of courage. It was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it, to stand before the unknown with an open heart and a steadfast spirit. Eventually, Adrian found himself in a chamber so vast that the ceiling was lost in darkness. And there, in the heart of the chamber, lay the dragon, its scales shimmering with an ethereal light, its eyes deep pools of wisdom and age. The dragon regarded Adrian with a gaze that pierced to the very essence of his being, and for a moment the prince felt the weight of his journey, the trials he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. With a voice that resonated like thunder yet carried the gentleness of a whisper, Adrian spoke to the dragon, his words honest and true. He spoke of his quest, of the lessons of compassion, humility, and now courage. He asked not as a prince or conqueror, but as a seeker of wisdom, to be allowed to hear the dragon's heartbeat, to understand the courage that lies in vulnerability. The dragon, moved by Adrian's sincerity and the purity of his quest, bowed its great head in assent. Then, with a gesture that invited the prince closer, it allowed him to place his hand upon its colossal heart. What Adrian felt in that moment was a revelation, a heartbeat that echoed the birth of mountains, the flow of rivers, and the whisper of winds through ancient forests. It was a heartbeat that spoke of fears faced, of battles fought not against others, but within oneself, and of the courage found in the acceptance of one's own vulnerability. As the prince stood there, his hand upon the dragon's heart, he realized that true courage was not the clamor of battle, but the quiet strength that comes from understanding one's fears and embracing them. It was a courage that allowed one to stand open-hearted before the world, ready to face whatever may come with a spirit unyielded, yet open to change. With the dragon's heartbeat still echoing in his soul, Adrian stepped back, bowing deeply in gratitude. The dragon, with a nod of acknowledgement, vanished into the shadows, leaving the prince alone with the profound silence of the chamber and the knowledge that he had completed his final task. As Adrian emerged from the caverns of whispering shadows, he carried with him not just the memory of the dragon's heartbeat, but the realization that the greatest courage lay in the journey he had undertaken. A journey not of conquest, but of transformation. Under the canopy of stars, outside the entrance of the caverns of whispering shadows, Prince Adrian settled into a night of solitude and reflection. The tasks set forth by the sage had been completed, each a stepping stone on a journey that had transformed him from a prince of pride to a spirit of humility, compassion, and courage. Now, as the moon bathed the world in its gentle light, Adrian pondered the depth of his metamorphosis and the essence of the lessons learned. The night was serene, the silence around him a stark contrast to the tumultuous journey of his soul. He thought of the phoenix and its tear, a symbol of compassion that had taught him the power of empathy, of sharing in the pain and joy of others. He remembered the summit of echoes, where capturing moonlight had shown him his place in the vastness of the universe, instilling in him a humility that grounded his spirit. And he recalled the dragon's heartbeat, a testament to the courage found in vulnerability, in facing one's fears with an open heart. As Adrian reflected on these experiences, he realized that true leadership was not about the authority one wielded, but about the understanding one offered. It was about seeing the world not from a throne, but from the midst of those one sought to lead, feeling their hopes, their fears, and their dreams as if they were his own. Leadership was about standing with one's people, not above them, guiding with empathy and serving with humility. The night deepened, and with it, Adrian's thoughts turned inward to the transformation within himself. He had started this journey seeking to regain his human form, to return to a life of princely duties and kingly aspirations. But as the stars wheeled overhead, he understood that his transformation was not just about reclaiming his body, but about redefining his soul. He had learned to value the intangible, the warmth of a kind gesture, the strength in a moment of vulnerability, and the light found in understanding and empathy. Adrian realized that these virtues were the true essence of leadership, qualities that would guide him to rule, not as a sovereign distant and detached, but as a king connected and compassionate. The tasks had been mirrors, reflecting back at him not only what he needed to learn, but who he needed to become. In seeking to lead his people, he first had to walk among them, to share in their joys and sorrows, to understand their hopes and dreams. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Adrian felt a profound peace settle over him. He had faced his fears, embraced his vulnerabilities, and learned the virtues that true leadership required. He was ready to return to his kingdom, not as the prince who had been lost in a storm, but as a king reborn, ready to lead with a heart full of compassion, humility, and courage. The night of reflection was a turning point, a moment when Adrian not only understood the depth of his transformation, but embraced the responsibilities that came with it. He had discovered the true meaning of leadership and to empathy, lessons he would carry forward as he prepared to face the final challenge of his quest. As the first light of dawn stretched across the land, Prince Adrian made his way back to the sage atop the mountain. He carried with him the tear of a phoenix, the moonlight in a bottle, the profound memory of the dragon's heartbeat, each a symbol of the virtues he had learned and embodied through his quest. Yet, as he approached the sage, a sense of anticipation filled the air, a prelude to a final lesson yet to be learned. The sage welcomed Adrian with a knowing gaze, one that saw beyond the surface to the depth of transformation within the prince. "You have journeyed far, Prince Adrian," the sage began, his voice echoing the wisdom of the ages. "You have learned compassion through the tear of a phoenix, humility from the moonlight, and courage from the dragon's heartbeat. But there is one final task you must undertake, a task that requires not the strength of your spirit, but the depth of your empathy." Adrian listened intently, ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead, understanding that his journey was not yet complete. The sage continued, "To truly return to your kingdom, you must first walk among your people, not as their prince, but as one of them. You must understand their lives, their struggles, and their joys from their perspective. Only then can you be the leader they need, one who rules with empathy and wisdom." The task was clear. Adrian was to return to his kingdom incognito, to live among his people without the trappings of royalty, to learn from them, and to serve them in whatever capacity he could. It was a challenge that excited and humbled him, for it offered him the opportunity to see his kingdom through the eyes of those he sought to lead. Adrian spent the following days and weeks living as a commoner among his people. He worked alongside farmers in the fields, sharing in their toil and understanding the sweat and effort that went into nourishing the land. He walked the bustling streets of the market, speaking with merchants and craftsmen, learning about their trades and the dreams that fueled their endeavors. And he sat by the hearths of humble homes, listening to the stories of his people, their hopes, fears, and the love that bound them together. Through these experiences, Adrian's heart grew even more attuned to the pulse of his kingdom. He felt the weight of responsibility not as a burden, but as a privilege, an opportunity to serve and uplift his people with a genuine understanding of their needs and decisions. When Adrian finally returned to the sage, he was no longer the prince who had embarked on a quest for transformation, but a king in every sense of the word, wise, compassionate, and brave, with a deep, empathetic understanding of his people. The sage, seeing the smiled, a smile that spoke of approval and pride. "Prince Adrian," the sage said, "you have completed your final task, and in doing so, you have found the true essence of leadership. You are ready to return to your kingdom, not just in body, but in spirit." But it was not the sage's words that transformed Adrian back to his human form. It was the realization of his journey, the acceptance of his role, not just as a ruler, but as a servant to his people, that broke the enchantment. As the last words were spoken, a gentle light enveloped Adrian, and where the prince once stood, now stood the king, reborn and ready to lead his kingdom with a new understanding of empathy and wisdom. Chapter 3: Return to Humanity. In the golden light of dawn, as King Adrian stood once again in human form, the sage presented him with a final test, a challenge that would prove whether the prince truly possessed the empathy and wisdom required to lead his kingdom into a future of prosperity and peace. "Before you can reclaim your throne," the sage intoned, "you must resolve a dispute within a village without revealing your royal identity or using any powers beyond your understanding and empathy." Adrian accepted this challenge with a humble heart, understanding that this was not merely a test, but an opportunity to apply the lessons he had learned on his transformative journey. Disguised as a traveler from distant lands, he made his way to the village, a place where tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. The dispute, he learned, was between two families who had once shared a deep bond of friendship. A misunderstanding over a piece of land had sown seeds of discord, threatening to unravel the fabric of unity that had held the village together for generations. As Adrian listened to the stories of both families, he realized that at the heart of their conflict was not greed or malice, but fear. Fear of loss, fear of the future, and fear of not being understood. With patience and a genuine desire to heal the rift, Adrian spent his days among the villagers, working alongside them, sharing meals, and most importantly, listening to their stories. Once families had come together in celebration and mutual support. It was a symbol of their unity, now turned into a battleground of their division. Drawing upon the empathy he had cultivated, Adrian began to weave a path toward reconciliation. He invited the heads of both families to a meeting under the old oak tree that stood at the heart of the disputed land. There, he shared with them not commands or decrees, but stories of their shared past, reminders of the bonds that once united them and the common dreams they held for their children's future, the conversation was not easy. Old wounds and pride threatened to derail the fragile peace Adrian was crafting. But with gentle persistence, he guided them toward understanding, helping them see that what united them was far greater than the land that divided them. As the sun set, casting long shadows on the ground once contested, a breakthrough was reached. The families agreed to transform the disputed land into a communal garden, a place where all villagers could come together, not just to cultivate the earth, but to nurture their bonds of community and friendship. In that moment of agreement, a ripple of relief and newfound hope spread through the village. Adrian, witnessing the transformation, knew that he had passed the final test. The dispute was resolved not with royal decrees or displays of power, but through empathy, understanding, and the courage to face one's fears and listen with an open heart. The sage, observing from afar, nodded in approval. Adrian had demonstrated the true essence of leadership, one that was grounded in the well-being of his people and guided by a profound understanding of their hearts and minds. In the heart of the village, under the ancient oak's watchful gaze, King Adrian experienced a tempest not of wind and rain, but of emotions swirling within him. As he navigated the delicate task of reconciliation, he felt within himself echoes of the magical storm that had first torn him from his royal life and set him on the path of transformation. The fear of failure, the weight of expectations, and the hope for a better future clashed and coalesced, mirroring the chaos of that fateful night. Yet, amidst this inner turmoil, Adrian found a beacon of calm. It was the understanding that true strength lay not in the absence of fear or doubt, but in the ability to face them with an open heart. His sincere efforts to bridge the divide between the feuding families resonated deeply with the villagers, touching their hearts and slowly knitting together the fabric of their community that had been torn asunder. The communal garden project, once a mere solution to a territorial dispute, blossomed into a symbol of unity and shared purpose. Villagers from all walks of life came together, their hands digging into the earth, planting seeds that would grow into a testament of their renewed bonds. Laughter and song filled the air, replacing the echoes of past grievances. As he worked alongside the villagers, Adrian felt the barriers between them dissolve. In their place grew a profound connection, born of shared labor and common goals. He witnessed the transformative power of empathy and understanding, not as abstract concepts, but as tangible forces that could heal wounds and build bridges. storm of emotions that had raged within him settled into a deep sense of peace. Adrian realized that his journey had come full circle. The magical storm that had transformed him into a cloud had been both a literal and metaphorical upheaval, stripping him of his identity and challenging him to grow. Now, as he stood amidst the villagers, united in their common purpose, he understood that his transformation was complete. The reconciliation in the village was a microcosm of the leadership Adrian aspired to embody. He saw clearly that his role as king was not to rule from on high, but to serve from within, to understand the hearts of his people, and to lead with compassion and empathy. The garden, with its burgeoning life, stood as a living testament to the power of coming together in the face of adversity, a lesson Adrian would carry with him to the throne. As the day waned and the shadows grew long, the villagers gathered to celebrate their newfound unity. Adrian, standing among them, felt a profound gratitude for the journey that had brought him to this moment. The storm of emotions had passed, leaving in its wake a man ready to lead his kingdom with wisdom, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to the well-being of his people in the wake of reconciliation, as the villagers celebrated unity under the starlit sky. An unusual phenomenon unfolded. The air, crisp, and mere moments before, began to stir. A gentle breeze whispering through the leaves of the ancient oak. The villagers looked up, curious, as the night sky, previously void of clouds, now cradled a singular luminous cloud that seemed to glow with an inner light. King Adrian, standing among his people yet apart, felt a deep connection to this celestial visitor. As if responding to an unspoken cue, the cloud began to weep. Not a torrential downpour, but a soft, nurturing rain, as gentle as a sigh. The villagers, faces turned skyward, marveled at this unexpected blessing. The rain was not cold but warm, imbued with a sense of peace and renewal. This was no ordinary rain, but the manifestation of Adrian's transformation. He, who had once roamed the skies as a cloud, now found that part of his essence could still touch the world in this form. The rain, a symbol of his journey and growth, fell upon the parched land, the communal garden, and the uplifted faces of the villagers. Where it touched, the earth seemed to sigh in contentment, the plants to stand a little taller, and the hearts of the people to swell with an inexplicable joy. The villagers, sensing the magic of the moment, embraced the rain with open arms and hearts. Children danced and spun, their laughter mingling with the gentle patter of raindrops. Elders, with eyes wise and soft, whispered prayers of thanks to the skies, recognizing the touch of a benevolent force. In this moment, King Adrian saw the true power of transformation, not just the change within oneself, but the ability to bring life and joy to others in ways unimaginable before. He realized that his journey, marked by trials and revelations, had not only reshaped his soul, but had granted him the capacity to touch the world in both literal and metaphorical ways. The touch of rain, as the villagers would come to call this night, was remembered as a turning point in the kingdom's history. It marked the beginning of a golden era, where the land flourished as never before, nurtured by the unseen hand of their king, who had learned the language of the sky and the earth. As the last of the raindrops fell, the cloud dissipated, leaving behind a sky of unparalleled clarity and a land imbued with vitality. The villagers, their spirits lifted and their bonds strengthened, returned to their homes, carrying with them the memory of the night when the king, in the guise of a gentle rain, had bestowed upon them a gift of life and unity. King Adrian, his heart full, knew that his return to humanity was not a return to the way things were, but a step into a new way of being. He had been transformed, not back into the man he was, but forward into the king he was meant to be. A ruler in tune with the natural world and the hearts of his people, ready to lead his kingdom with compassion, wisdom, and the gentle touch of rain. In the aftermath of the touch of rain, as the land soaked in the life-giving waters, and the villagers embraced the dawn of a new day, King Adrian stood amidst the burgeoning garden, reflecting on the journey that had led him to this moment. The rain, a gift from his own transformed essence, had been more than a mere act of nature. It was a manifestation of the empathy and humility he had discovered within himself. As a prince, Adrian had been admired for his valor and leadership, but his heart had been guarded, his understanding limited by the high walls of his castle and the distance he maintained from his subjects. The magical storm that had swept him into the skies, transforming him into a cloud, had been the catalyst for a profound change, not of form, but of spirit, floating above the land. Adrian had witnessed the joys and struggles of his people from a new perspective. He had felt the warmth of the sun that kissed the earth, and the desperation of parched lands crying out for rain. These experiences, once foreign to the prince, became the lessons that shaped the king. In his act of raining upon the village, Adrian had not only nurtured the land, but had also sown the seeds of empathy and humility within the hearts of his people and within himself. Embracing empathy meant seeing beyond one's own experiences, understanding the pain and joy of others as if they were one's own. For Adrian, this realization came not in grand gestures or royal decrees, but in the simple act of giving, of transforming his very essence into a gift for his kingdom. It was a humility born of the knowledge that true leadership was not about ruling from above, but serving from within, recognizing the interconnectedness of all life. As the garden around him flourished, Adrian saw it as a metaphor for his reign, a reign that would be characterized by the care and nurture he had shown as a cloud. He vowed to lead with empathy, to listen to the whispers of the land and the voices of his people, and to respond with a heart open to their needs and dreams. The villagers, witnessing their king's transformation, felt a renewed sense of loyalty and trust. They saw in Adrian not just a ruler, but a guardian, one who had traversed the path of self-discovery and returned with a profound understanding of the collective heartbeat of the kingdom. In this act of giving, Adrian had found the essence of his humanity, the qualities he had once lacked as a prince: empathy and humility had become the cornerstones of his rule as a king. He understood that these were not signs of weakness, but of strength, not burdens, but gifts to be shared. As the sun rose higher, casting a golden light over the kingdom, Adrian felt a deep connection to the land and its people, a bond that was unbreakable and sacred. He knew that the challenges ahead would require not just the wisdom of a king, but the heart of one who had learned to reign, to bring life and hope where there was none. As the kingdom reveled in the newfound harmony and prosperity brought forth by King Adrian's transformation, a final audience awaited him atop the ancient, wisdom-steeped peak where his journey of metamorphosis had begun. The sage, who had set the prince on the path of trials, stood as the silent guardian of both the kingdom's history and its future. It was time for the circle to close, for the prince to fully reclaim his place among his people, not just as their sovereign, but as the living emblem of their collective spirit. Adrian ascended the mountain with a sense of completion, his heart a tapestry of the trials he had endured and the lessons learned. With each step, he reflected on the essence of what it meant to lead, to serve, and to be part of something greater than oneself. The sage greeted him not with grand pronouncements, but with a nod of deep acknowledgement, an affirmation of the journey completed and the transformation realized. You have journeyed through the storm, walked among the stars, and returned, not as the prince who he left, but as a king who has earned his crown through the trials of heart and spirit, the sage intoned, his voice echoing the ancient wisdom of the land. Adrian stood before the sage, no longer the haughty youth who had once viewed his kingdom from the isolation of his castle, but as a leader whose heart had been irrevocably intertwined with the destinies of his people. He understood now that his transformation was not a return to a former self, but an evolution into the monarch his kingdom needed. A ruler wise enough to listen, strong enough to empathize, and humble enough to serve. With a gesture that seemed to draw upon the very energies of the earth and sky, the sage completed the transformation. A light enveloped Adrian, not to bestow upon him any grand physical alteration, but to signify the internal change that had taken place. When the light faded, Adrian stood transformed, not in appearance, but in essence. He was a prince by birthright, but a king by the virtue of his trials and the depth of his empathy. A leader not just of the land, but of the people's hearts. The sage's final words to Adrian were both a benediction and a charge. Go forth, King Adrian, and lead with the wisdom of the clouds, the strength of the earth, and the warmth of the sun. Your kingdom will flourish, not under the shadow of a scepter, but in the light of your heart. Returning to his kingdom, Adrian found it transformed as he was. The communal gardens flourished, the villages thrived, and the people greeted him, not with the deference owed to a distant monarch, but with the warmth reserved for a beloved leader. His adventures and trials had become the stuff of legend, stories told by the fireside and in the fields, inspiring a generation to look beyond their boundaries and to see each other not as subjects, but as partners in the grand design of their shared destiny. King Adrian's return marked the beginning of an era of prosperity and peace, a golden age built on the foundations of empathy, humility, and unity. He ruled not from a throne of gold, but from among his people, his every decision imbued with the wisdom of the sage, the courage of the phoenix, the humility of the moonlight, and the heart of the dragon. The prince's return was a herald of hope, a testament to the power of transformation and the enduring strength of a leader who had learned to serve. King Adrian's story, from the tempest that had first torn him from his royal life to the gentle rains that had nourished his kingdom, was a saga of rebirth, a narrative that would be woven into the fabric of the kingdom's history, reminding all of the power of empathy and the true essence of leadership.